world is still shit. I mean, the world is still being ravaged by a virus. Possibly out of revenge, I don't know for sure. But what I do know is here are 4 films about viruses. First up is the 1995 film Outbreak, based on the 1994 novel The Hot Zone. The stellar cast starring in this film includes Dustin Hoffman, Morgan Freeman, Rene Russo, and many, many more. In the film, an Ebola-like virus emerges from the Republic of Zaire, and eventually the United States of America. Basically, the scientists have to find a cure before more people die, and they also have the military wanting to just blow everything and everyone away, so they kind of have to step up their pace. Now, this film isn't very accurate scientifically, and received mixed reviews upon its release. Little side note, as far as accuracy goes, I don't know why anyone would ever think that a film, which is a work of fiction, should ever have to be accurate. I mean, if you really look at the basis of all storytelling, yes, it does have truth in it, but for the most part, it is a work of fiction. Therefore, it is not strictly adhering to rules set in the real world. I actually find it kind of disturbing that so many people feel that they have to push real world rules into a film, thinking that if it doesn't adhere to it, that it makes it less credible or that it makes it less of a film. A lot of times criticisms will come from, well, that can't really happen, or that doesn't happen in real life. Well, the way I look at it is that each film itself is in its own universe. In that universe, rules may work differently. Sure, we have to convey things to be relatable to people here in the real world, but for the most part, I don't let that kind of thing bother me. Now, that isn't to say that criticisms about that kind of thing aren't valid. It's just, I don't think that's taken into consideration a lot of the time. Moving on. So, on the flip side, if you want frighteningly accurate, apparently the 2011 film Contagion is very accurate, and in fact uses the term social distancing, and the virus stemmed from bats in that one. Now, at the time of them making that film, they were actually kind of basing it more off of the SARS thing and the 2009 flu, but it is kind of odd that in recent times with everything happening, that's the film that they're like, wow, this is pretty accurate, and that's 9 years ago. It's almost like you would think if things like this keep happening, that maybe, just maybe, we as a world should take this kind of thing more seriously. Next up is Virus, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland was also in Outbreak. That son of a bitch. This film is based off a 1992 comic book of the same name, and the story is about an extraterrestrial, intelligent energy, basically in the form of what looks like lightning, coming down through a satellite into a Russian ship. Once in the ship, it starts taking spare parts and even humans to create cyborgs for its kind of slaves. Because of course it does. Now, even though this creature does act like a type of virus, it in fact calls mankind a virus. Which in this case, I don't think it's particularly true. I think he's just being a dick. Jamie Lee Curtis has gone on record to say how bad she thinks the movie is. Whenever she hangs out with friends, she's like, I'm bringing Virus. It's the worst one I've ever been in. And apparently in a Blu-ray commentary, she said she actually tried to get the director fired. Yikes. Despite the negative reception and reviews, it has gained a cult following since 1999. And most of the effects in it are actually pretty good. The practical effects, that is. And I think it's okay at best. Good concept though, for sure. Third up is the remake of the 1973 film The Crazies from 2010. The original film was made by George Romero. Starring Timothy Olyphant and the girl who plays Killer Frost in the Flash series. So really, starring no one, this remake is actually decent from what I remember. The film sees a virus called Trixie not making moves on Speed Racer, but instead a biological weapon that was on a cargo plane that crash landed in a small town in Iowa. The virus is unleashed, but nothing of value was lost. Although it might have been Slipknot's hometown, so that would actually explain a lot. The best scene in this film is actually at the end, and it's ridiculous. It involves a nuke. You should watch just for that alone. And this film was created at the tail end of the decade that had wild, crazy running creatures coming after people. It started with 28 Days Later, then Dawn of the Dead 2004, 28 Weeks Later, and then I Am Legend, and then this. Speaking of I Am Legend, last up is The Last Man on Earth. Are you confused? Well, let me explain. In 1954, Richard Matheson wrote his novel about basically the end of the world. A pandemic destroys the population, and all that's left are basically vampires. And yes, they are vampires. So in 1964, the film The Last Man on Earth starring Vincent Price was made. It got a remake in 1971 as The Omega Man starring Charlton Heston, although the vampires were toned down to only be sensitive to light and resembled mutants, just like the Omega Man, a Treehouse of Horror episode with The Simpsons. You'll get the reference. And that again was remade in 2007 with Will Smith, and it was retitled, the original book titled, I Am Legend. Now in that film, they're more the infected mutations from 28 Days Later kind of thing, but they're still vampires. They still burn with UV lights and all that stuff. Except they're not, afraid of garlic and crucifixes like they are in the original film, and I believe the original novel as well. With all that being said, The Last Man on Earth stars Vincent Price as Dr. Robert Morgan, not Robert Neville, even though that is the character's name in all the other versions. He's the sole survivor of a mass pandemic. He must constantly stay alert of the blood-sucking fiends that are trying to kill him while he kills their asses right back. And after some thrills and chills, Dr. Robert Morgan is fatally wounded after finding out that his blood actually holds the cure, and that this whole time all the vampires he was slaying were actually just a new race of people now trying to rebuild their society. So he will go down in their history as a legend, as a monster boogeyman who stalked the daytime, murdering people. But all this talk about being the last man on Earth, especially with this pandemic going on, I can't imagine what that would be like. Can't imagine. Can't imagine. I'm the last man on Earth. Everyone's gone. Hello? 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 I could do whatever I want now. I could do whatever I want now. Oh, yeah. Got your horsey blanket.